Hey, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going from the really difficult reels to a very simple reel. Many of you know that I like to do all kinds of reels, and this is an early bait casting reel. Just a little tired, but this one is a Defiance, and it's Guadalupe. And I thought maybe initially it was made in Guadalupe, but it's 60 yards made in the U.S. And before we get started, just a quick word on that. The 60 yards, that was sort of a standard at the time. You could either get a reel in a 60 or 100 yards. Now, that yards didn't refer to monofilament, of course, because monofilament wasn't around. It referred to the linen braided line. And depending on the number of strands in the braid itself, it depended on whether you can get 60 yards on there or not. But I thought I would just take a minute, just have some fun with this reel. I picked it up for a few dollars. What I liked about it was the simplicity of the reel. It can't be more than maybe 10 parts in this reel. The clicker works, the reel turns. The handle, which is probably some sort of an ivy or a bone or something, maybe a molded plastic, it turns, but it's a little tight, and that's from swelling over the time, and that's kind of normal. So let's just show you. People ask me if I collect reels. I really don't. But I do have a couple of reels on my bench that are just fine examples of about as simple a reel as you can get. And here's just a few of those. So here's a small, probably crappie reel or the like. Here's a Meiselback, which I really like the Meiselback tri-parts. This one's kind of the same. But I leave them there just as examples to me that life in a simpler time is maybe not so bad, and you didn't need, as Armando would say, 10-ball bearings and the latest in space age technology. So these reels were probably 1940s, maybe a little bit earlier, I'm not sure. They are what are referred to as direct drive reels, and that there's you are the drive. There's no anti-reverse in this reel, and you have a main gear turning a small gear. That's kind of the principle behind a fishing reel. A big gear turns a little gear, makes the spool go around to gather the line. So we'll show you how to do this. I'm going to clean it up, quick lubrication on it, and we'll put it back together again, and probably put it on my shelf because it's a nice light looking reel. I also heard from a fella out at work about how to clean these reels. This is German silver, and they said if you just do a quick kind of dip in Tarnix, that's a product that's been around forever, that'll clean all of this right up. So I'll probably run out and get myself a can of that and give it a try. There's other solutions out there, of course, but just kind of interested in seeing how that works. We took the handle off. As I mentioned, it's going, but it's tight. I'll put a little bit of penetrating oil on here. I don't think it's going to solve the problem. I did hear from another person on when you get these tight handle knobs, and I think I was referring to an Ocean City one, which also has a problem with them swelling. Use heat. He suggested just using a simple blow dryer or maybe a heat gun. Be careful. But a blow dryer or heat gun oftentimes will kind of reverse the effect of that and make it functional again. I don't know. We'll see. I'm taking my pieces and parts and I'm putting them into a parts tray. It's the bottom of a fast food container. And those fast food containers help me to know where that real part is when I go to reinstall. We took the 2 screws and the handle off. That should enable me to remove the side plate. And this is typical of an older reel. You can see that we have quite a bit of grease and grime and junk in there. And we also have something on the bottom here. I'm not sure if that pin belongs in or out, but we do have a pin on that gear. And we'll see what's going on there. Take the main gear off. I'm not sure, that's kind of an odd position of the pin. It would seem to me that pin should be a through pin, but it's not. Okay, well, there you go, there you have it. I'm going to use a little bit of WD-40 to clean this side up. I'm thinking that might be holding the spool on. We'll take a look. You never know quite what you're going to find when you open these up. And I don't like to be aggressive with the cleaners. If I can find a way to clean a reel with a piece of cloth or a paper towel, that's going to be my preference. Just going to try seeing if that pin comes out. It seems to me it has to. There you go. And that's going to enable me to take the spool out from the other side. So let's go do that. There's a couple of cross plate screws here. We'll go take those off. The bars look like they're pressed in on the one side, and that they're holding tight to the other side with these cross plate screws. Looks like this one's kind of stuck, so I'm thinking that somebody probably did something unusual there. We'll work on that one in a moment. We'll come back to it. So there's 5 screws holding this in on the cross-line side. And in servicing the reel, this doesn't have a button that comes off, so you have to remove this side plate in order to get that off. So that's what we'll do here. I'm using a micro screwdriver because the threads are so, or the slots are so small. You always want to match that blade of your screwdriver to the insert for the thread. And this one just doesn't want to turn, so I'm going to use the assist of that pliers to get it started coming out. And I'm not sure why this one is kind of stuck the way it is, but it is. This goes to my thoughts of if reels could talk. So there might be some accumulation on there, something else going on. Well, and what happens here is that's a replacement screw. It's a longer screw. That's why it's sitting proud. Okay, let's take this off. You can see why you want to get to the back end of this. There's a lot of dry grease there. We pulled that little slot out, so we can remove the spool. We'll go ahead and clean again. We're going to use a penetrating oil here to dissolve some of that grease. Staying with our theme of don't get too aggressive with your cleaners if you don't have to, but a penetrating oil will clean all of this up. So let's make sure we did that. And I wish I could find a replacement screw at the moment. I guess we're going to have to go back in with that oversized screw for now, but it would be nice if we had the one that fits the case. But with many of these, unfortunately, what you find is the parts clearly haven't been manufactured in years. And if you have to make do, well, that's what happens. You make do. All right. This is all you needed to do to clean it up. Clean the side, get the old grease out of there. Put some new grease on. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease for that. I use an artist's brush to kind of get it where I want it to. And if you use an artist's brush, just check from time to time. Make sure that you don't have the hairs left behind. And one of the ways I like to do that is when I do the brushing at the end, I just like to wipe it all off and pull away from the brush, and that if there is any hairs that are stuck in there, you will be able to pull them out if they're loose. Alright, just a little bit of inside case cleanup here. Again, I'm going to try that Tarnex. That sounds like a good suggestion there. I know that there's others. I'm going to go ahead and put this in. And then there was a little wedge part here. It's hard to see, but that's where this piece came out of. I just want to find a flat spot to that. It's actually a flat piece of metal as opposed to a pin. I guess it's there to anchor the spool. The best way to do this is to hold that with pliers. So if you like these kinds of videos, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button. That way you'll see when I'm posting them, and you'll be able to make a choice as to whether you want to see those. I work on all kinds of reels, anything that basically comes into my shop. And then every now and then something like this one, where the reel came as kind of a batch purchase. There we go, that's in. A batch purchase of some used reels, and I was delighted to find it in the offering. All right, we've got to match up our side plate screws now. We've gone ahead and we've lubricated the inside of this from a spool standpoint, and we have one screw, as we noted, sits proud. It's too long for the pieces. That's okay. It's going to hold the side plate on nonetheless. And those of you that know me and watch the videos know me in small screws well. From time to time we have a little bit of a difficulty getting them started. So if you'll just bear with me. While I'm doing this, if you have any questions about a fishing reel, it doesn't have to be an old one. Maybe you're working on a project and you're stuck. If you leave those questions in the comments section, I'll be happy to respond to you if I know the answer, and if not, I'll try and point you in the direction of where you might be able to find that answer. I just had one today on trying to locate a part for an older Daiwa reel. Well, generally speaking, I don't know the answer to that one. If the parts are out of production, there's a couple reliable suppliers out there. But if the parts are out of production, they've been gone for a long time now with those new old stock parts gone. Well, there's a couple of sources, but not many. And most of the time you're going to have to try and find a donor reel somewhere. And some of these are just impossible. If you have a Daiwa Apollo Series, AS Series, for example, and you've lost the rubber claw for the anti-reverse, well, you're just out of luck. There was that was brought up to me by one of our viewers. That one was around for a while, but those are gone too now. I think the Apollo series is pretty much 20 to 30 years old now, so generally won't find those. Alright, we just got one more of these. And we got the big one. And it's good to have all kinds of screwdrivers on your bench. In this case I have a screwdriver that's a micro driver. I guess we'll get this in a little bit. That one was a little rough. I'm hopeful that it's the same thread size and just a little bit long. It was a little bit difficult coming out, as you saw with the pliers, so I'm just going to put some oil onto that screw and just try to get it started here. It may be worth coming back later and trying to trim the back end of this. There we go. Well, it's going in a lot easier than it was coming out, that's for sure. But we're probably at the end of this now. Oh, actually, yeah, that's about where I found it. Okay, let's come over to the drive side then. We'll just take care of the quick one or two things that were here. The first thing is the spool gear. You want to check that. Here's where that pin is going to sit now. And as I'm looking at this, this appears to be that that pin should go through more, which is what I was thinking about before. It just looks like it shouldn't stop there for whatever reason. Specifically, one of the reasons is that the spool has two shaft grooves on it. There we go. So that was bent a little bit, but that's the way it really belongs. And I'm seeing that there was a whole bunch of scratching and clawing going on here, probably in the past. I'm not sure what caused that, but perhaps that was an issue. All right, with that through now you had a slot that went through that spool gear. That's why it didn't make sense that only one side was hanging out. All right, we'll put some grease on that. Now we make sure that that clean gear is clean. I didn't notice any issues when we started, so just make sure it's clean. Come on in and get some grease on that. And this looks like it rides flat to the back. Just get a little bit onto the face there. It should sit up a little bit. Get that in, and now we'll just clean up the case itself. The old grease off of this. It's got a bushing on it. Also has a little stud here for the spool, a little adjuster. We'll go ahead and load this back in then. And before I go to that case screwing up and all, try and do what I can to get some of this dirt off of there. Again, I'm interested to see how that Tarnex works. Product's been around forever. Let's take the two side plate case screws first. So it's almost like these are jeweler tools, and interestingly enough, jewelers were one of the first sets of reel builders. Most of the folks that started making fishing reels also had a history in making watches, so you can appreciate the gear movements and the like of the early reels. Of course, when mass manufacturing came along, it recognized a lot of the things that maybe were hand done at the time, but the principles pretty much stayed the same. All right, we have a handle and a handle nut. And we'll be able to put this one back together again. I often wonder about these reels, why they wind up in the for sale market. Okay, let's give it that final test then. There you go, nice and smooth. And I guess if you wanted to go fishing again, you could. This was just going to go on my shelf as a statement of simplicity. But overall, this is the Defiance Guadalupe, and just a nice example of a simple reel and how to keep it serviced to go fishing again. I hope you've enjoyed that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do. To everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. And have a great day.